Okay guys, welcome to a new video series where I'm going to be critiquing some weightlifters' technique, and we're going to start with some of my athletes, and I like to do this after a competition. I'll give them a week off to just chill and relax and recover, and then we'll get into the gym for some technique critique. So we're going to start with Coach Matt. And Matt started weightlifting on his own, taught himself how to snatch and clean and jerk, and built some pretty bad habits. And then he trained with some good coaches for a little while, and then he had some time off, and then he started training with Rumbler. And I actually don't get to see him lift a whole lot, mostly because he's also a coach at Arkitect, so our schedules are kind of opposite, which is too bad because he needs a lot of help. So we have a couple things set up here. We have this vertical line at the center of the bar in the start position. I like to do that because it shows you where the bar finishes in relation to where it starts, and you get to see the shoulders in relation to the center of the bar and all that stuff. So let's watch the entire lift. It's going to be played back at about 20% speed, and then we'll break it down bit by bit. So here we go. Okay, so that is pretty much the whole lift minus the recovery. And just a quick note about bar paths. They're good to look at. They're a good tool, but they're not everything. So you can have a good bar path and not good pulling mechanics, and you can have good pulling mechanics and have kind of a strange bar path. The kind of traditional bar path is what's called an S pull, and this is like a backwards S written tightly, in a very narrow vertical fashion. There are a lot of variations on that, but that's kind of what's considered like the classic pull. So Matt's looks more like a question mark rather than an S. So what we see is right away, the bar moves away from his body. So this is the center of the bar at the start. The bar swings away right away, and then he pulls it straight. So this might not look like much, but if you figure the camera's probably 15, maybe 20 feet away, and we can visibly see it here, and this line is fairly thick also, this is worse than it looks, okay? So any movement outward away from the body is usually not great. It's going to happen a little bit after hip contact. This is way too much. But any movement away at the very beginning is not good at all. Someone famous for doing this, or not famous, but a famous person who does this, Ilya. Actually, if you watch his bar path, the bar does move away. But what Ilya does that Matt does not, aside from lifting massive amounts of weights, is Ilya gets the bar going back in towards his hip right away. And Matt never does that. Watch, the bar goes past the knee, stays straight, and so it's okay to have a straight bar path in that first pull, but the bar has to come in towards the hips after the knees, and you can see it doesn't. There's a little bit right at the very end, but that is way too late and not enough. And then he has this huge hip extension, which is why the bar pushes out. Also, his arms should definitely be bending by now, and they're not. Right about there is where they start bending, which is not great. And yeah, that's why he jumps forward. Check out his foot. So the center of the bar starts over the joint of his big toe, and then watch his feet move. Boom. So here's the thing. When you move your feet from the pulling position to the catching position, they have to come off the floor. He's airborne here. So if the bar has velocity going left to right, forward basically for him, as soon as he becomes airborne, has no contact with the floor, he has no means of staying planted. So all this horizontal force is going to drag him forward, and that's why he jumps forward. So this is not great. This needs a lot of work, but that is part of the fun and challenge of being a coach. So let's start from the beginning and see why this is happening. So he starts in a pretty good position. His shoulders are very forward of the bar, which is okay. He really can't change this because of his mechanics. Because of his proportions. So if he were to lean back to get his shoulders a little more over the bar, it would push his knees forward too much, and it just wouldn't work. But everything else is pretty good, right? So shoulders are in front of the bar, which is what you want. Maybe a little too much, but that's okay. Back is very flat. Hip is slightly higher than the knee. Elbows are turned out. Eyes are straight ahead. Everything's looking pretty good. So where do things go wrong? Right away. Notice what his hips are doing. Okay? When you lift, you want this back angle to stay constant until the bar gets to about here. All right? But what do you notice about his back angle? Starts to incline right away. He is extending his hips right away, which is taking his hamstrings right out of this lift. Okay? And then when he gets to here, hamstrings aren't loaded. All he has left is glutes and low back. And all those do is extend, where the hamstrings basically help to load the knee joint. So when you get to the knee, you want to be knees about 90% extended with a deep bow, so the shoulders are in front of the bar. And where are the shoulders right now? Shoulders are right over the bar, which means his knee is too bent and he's too upright with his torso. So this is very difficult to fix if you get into this. So basically, once he gets to this position, not a whole lot you can do. All right, you've already kind of screwed the pooch. It would help if he brought the bar in closer, but that would only slightly mitigate the problem. Okay, and even if he somehow managed to just really grind that bar upward and bend those elbows and shave his chest, as I like to say, it's not going to help. It's kind of too far gone. So what are we going to do to fix this snatch? Well, one thing that we need to do is we need to get him positionally strong. So when you see someone doing this, it's because they're not strong in this position. That doesn't mean he has weak hamstrings. It means in that position, he has no motor pattern developed, okay? Strength is very dependent on position. And one thing I've programmed for him in the past is holds at the knee. But either I didn't program them enough or he just wasn't getting into a good position when he was doing them. And that's tricky, right? Because if I give you a drill, okay, it looks good, and then next workout you go to do it on your own, some people just don't have the body awareness to know if they're in a good position or not, or there might not be anybody in the gym to say, hey, you're not in a good position. So that is one of the tricky things when you train by yourself or without a coach present all the time. And that's why I'm not a huge fan of online coaching, because it's reactive rather than in the moment. So if you're screwing up this drill, then you just made the problem worse rather than making it better. So you're just reinforcing those bad habits. So we need to get him a little more positionally strong and positionally aware. So he needs to push the knees back much, much more, and he needs to get the bar in much, much more. So a tall guy like him with a longer leg, it looks like maybe it's his tib fib that are really the really long part. He's going to have even more of a deep bow in that position. So the longer somebody's leg is, the more bent over they're going to look when they get to the knee. And the shorter their leg is, the more like squatted they'll be. So not the end of the world, not great, needs a lot of work, but those are the big things that I'm seeing. He's jumping forward, he's swinging the bar, but you have to fix the beginning first, because if you don't fix that, then it kind of doesn't matter. And if you do fix that, well, then some of those other problems might naturally go away on their own. So it doesn't make sense to try to work on, you know, the things happening here until we sort out that first pull. So that's those are my thoughts on Matt's snatch here. If you guys have any questions, post them in the comments, or if you would like me to critique your lifting, send a video my way. But just remember that I'm going to be brutally honest. I'm going to tell you what I see, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. So thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you next time.